everyone, welcome to our Peace Elephant tutorial. You can see here you're going to be making two of our cute little peace elephants, or if you want you can just make one big one, it's up to you. So starting off with the clay, and then we'll be moving on and doing some suckies and crystals. So in your kit you should have your lovely template mat, a good handful of suckies, I think there's about 12 to be exact, your clay, your sphagnum moss, lovely amethyst chips, and then your other goodies, which is super glue, wire, tacky glue, and your scissors. Let's get started. Alright, so we're going to start off with our polymer clay. You can see we've got our head, our two ears, our body, and a little tail. So we've got 5 different containers of clay, and we've got 2 elephants. So what we're going to be doing is using 2.5, well, it's 5/8 we call it, for each turtle. Each elephant. You can tell I've been making way too many turtles. So pulling out your clay, these little 1/8 pieces, so you should have 5/8. And then we're going to be rolling them all out into little balls for our body parts. This just helps us get a good ratio. So obviously the tail's the easiest, a nice small little ball. And then you're going to be, it's pretty much almost splitting. So you grab an 1/8, you pull a little bit out for your tail, and then you split that for your 2 ears. The ratio is just a bit out, so I'm just evening the 2 balls out. Sweet. Now we're going to be moving on to the body. So for the body, I just chuck 2/8 together and roll it up. Now you might notice this granite clay, if you've worked with other polymer clay, it's a lot firmer than normal polymer clay, so you really have to work it to get it good. Now you can see 2/8 wasn't quite enough, so I'm going to add a little bit more to my body ball. Perfect. Alright. Now finally we're doing our head. So you see that it's way too small, so we're going to grab a clump from the final 1/8. You might have some left over, so if you want you can distribute that across your balls, make your body parts just a bit bigger. Or you can just keep it aside for another day. Yep, so I'm grabbing a bit more, making my head a bit bigger. You really want to make sure your ratios are pretty good. You don't want to have a body that's too small or a head that's too big. And I'm just going to pop that aside for now. Cool. So let's start making our body. So you can see we've got our little legs, which is all one piece. And then we've got our head, which is all one piece again. So it's 4 separate pieces all up. So starting with the tail, the easiest part. You're going to be doing an angled roll, so you want to tilt your finger, roll it so it creates that little cone shape, or spike. And then for the ears, you're going to be squishing them out, and this part's rather easy, I guess. You can see there the size of the ears. Most importantly, when you do squish it, you want to ensure the clay doesn't crack on the edges, so smoothing it out as you go. And I also try to ensure there's a little bit of an indent from the side, so it obviously looks like the ears are curling inwards slightly. Cool. Now we will do the same thing with our other ear. Oh, not that clay. This clay. Great, now that the ears are done, we can move on to our body. So you can see I'm squishing it up, making it nice and warm to work with again. And then I'm going to roll it on the side to create kind of a oval or long shape, I guess, after I've rolled it into the ball. Awesome, so doing a long roll, so it's a bit log shaped. And then we're going to be doing our 4 little pinches on the bottom for our little feet. So you can see as I pinch it, we've got a funny looking top, but then we're starting to get those 4 little nubs on the bottom. You want to use your finger to create a nice long indentation through the bottom, and then you'll be doing those 2 cross sections. So you can see here I'm using my finger to just push across side to side and then from front to back. And then you'll primp and fix those little feet. So it can take a while to get here. Definitely, again, take your time. And obviously if you aren't happy with it, you can just squish it up and start again. That's the beauty of polymer clay. And of course you've got your 4 little feet on the template mat to make sure you've got a good size, as well as your body side view and front view. So I'm going to line it up. It's not quite long enough, so I'm going to stretch it out a bit more. And I also try and ensure that one side is slightly taller than the other, if that makes sense. So the side that we're going to be putting with the head, it's got a bit more height to it, whereas the little bum of the the elephant, it's going to be a tiny little bit lower. But if the back's the same height, that's completely fine. So, talking way too much, moving on, we're going to do our head. So this is just a simple matter of pinching it to create and pulling out that trunk. You can see here I'm just rolling it in my fingers to make it nice and long. And it's quite an even transition between the head and the trunk. So it's not quite long enough. I'm going to do a little bit more pulling, a little bit more rolling, get a bit more length to that trunk. Oh, awesome. And now we get to shape it. So using that head side section, you're going to be pulling your trunk up and lining it up against that. So it's like a good luck elephant. Trunk upwards. Cool. It's looking pretty cute so far. So all our body parts are now made. It's time to start assembling. You can see here we've got some pieces of wire, and what you want to do is cut them about 2 centimeters long roughly, and you're going to want about 6 pieces of those. This will help us with our head. And now you're just going to be using 2 at a time. So we're going to pop 2 gently into our ears. And I used to do 1, but the reason we use 2 is that gives it a little bit extra hold. So I was having huge problems trying to get my ears to stick, even with super glue. So I found that using the 2 bits of wire helps it give that structure. And of course you have some super glue to fix those little mistakes if need be. And the final one we're going to put our wire in is our body, so our head can attach to our body. So you want to squish it down first to find that spot where the head's going to sit, and then you simply just grab your 2 bits of wire and push them in place. Now we get to assemble. So you're now going to just pop your head on, squish it down, apply a good amount of pressure so it's not going to fall off. This clay has a tendency to come apart during the baking process, hence the reason we're using 2 bits of wire. So smushing it on. And then we're going to grab our ears and push them in place with the side of our head. Awesome. Now I'm just going to pull those ears in, fix them up and smooth them out a little bit. Sometimes you'll find they might be a bit too big for your head and body, so you can just push them in, make them a tiny bit smaller. That's looking cute. So we're going to pop our little tail on, and that just gently pop it on the back, apply a little bit of pressure, and it's good to go. And now we're going to be creating a bit of an indentation in the back, and that's just a spot for a moss to sit in. So you see I've got my finger in between my feet, and I'm just creating a little hole on the top of my elephant. It's like a little mini planter. And the final primping, and it's ready to be baked. Alright, so you can see here I've got a pair of tongs with my elephant, and that's just to ensure that the head doesn't fall down with the weight, because it can be quite heavy. So if you have something to prop up, I definitely recommend that. And we're going to pop it in for 7 minutes to begin with at 200 degrees, but that's because my oven's bodgy. So you guys, we can definitely do it at 180 degrees. And now I'm going to check him, pop my finger in to make sure it's cooked. But my finger was still creating little indentations, so popped him in for a bit longer. See if it's solid. So when it's cooked, you should be able to press it with your finger now, and there should be no indentations at all. Obviously it's still a bit soft while it's warm. Once it's completely cooled, it's good to go and solid. Alright, now I always say this, but it's my favourite part, the sucky part. So to begin with, we're going to be grabbing our tacky glue, and we're just going to be filling our, well, not completely filling, but filling our hole with the glue. That's going to be where we're sticking our moss on our elephant. I almost said turtle again. And you really only need a little bit. We definitely give you guys more than you need, but it's always better to have more than less. So you have a tiny little bit, and whether or not you want to wet this moss beforehand or keep it dry, I find wet moss is a bit more pliable and easy to use, but the dry moss is better because the succulents stick and they dry a lot quicker. So I'm just putting an extra bit of glue in there to make sure it all holds in place. And this glue does dry clear, so don't stress about that. Ow, hurt my elbow. Cool, the moss is in place. Now I've grabbed our crystals because we pop the crystals on before we do the suckies. So you can see I've got it down the back, kind of like a little mohawk. So I'm just going to do a little stripe of glue. And then we're just going to pick our crystals accordingly. So I do a couple of tall ones at the top, and then as I go down the back, I sort of go towards the chunkier and the smaller ones. Obviously for a while, they'll take a bit before they're properly holding, but within the half hour, depending on the weather, if it's a really hot day, it'll be probably a bit quicker. You'll notice they'll start to hold and the glue will start to turn clear. And it's sucky time. So we've given you guys 12 succulents, so you should have 6 suckies on each elephant, 3 on each side. That's because there's not really too much space to stick them, so we definitely don't want to overcrowd that moss any more than we are. Pushing them in. And when it comes to watering these guys, all you need to do is give them a little spritz of water once or twice a week, and they should be good to go. Being babies, they don't store as much moisture as our bigger suckies, so just gotta watch them. If they start to shrivel, give them a bit more water, and of course give them a decent amount of light so they're not stretching too much. If you do have them indoors, take them out for some morning sun a couple times a week, a few times a week, and that will keep them nice, small and compact until you eventually have to transplant them as they grow. Awesome, that's looking cool, and that glue will eventually dry. And we are done. I hope you guys made the cutest little elephants, and thank you so much for watching. Feel free to share your pics on Facebook. We love seeing what you all create. Bye guys.